Welcome to another episode of the Overcome University podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is Tandi Montgomery. She's the founder and CEO of Tandi Monet. She's an author and a speaker. Tandi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think that your story is so fascinating and what you're doing is spearheading so much, especially for women. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and what even got you on the mission to be doing all these things that you're like now spearheading for women?
Absolutely. How much time do you have? I'm just kidding. I'll keep it short. And so, Michael, I had a very thriving career in advertising for 15 years,
Mhm.
and I was really blessed to be able to create marketing strategies for, Capital One, Verizon, Cinnabon, you name it. I probably did a campaign, and so it was a really, really fun and exciting time in my life. However, there was a curveball in 2021. So
Mm.
November 1st, 2021, I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer.
Wow.
And of course, as you can imagine, it was unexpected because I'm extremely healthy, ate well, and it didn't run in my family.
Wow.
But all things work together, right? And so throughout that experience, I had 16 rounds of chemo, 30 days of radiation, and 4 surgeries within the span of 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it was very traumatic in a sense, but you know, again, everything works together for the good. And because of that, now I am on a mission to really help women shift from existing to living because I really truly believe that my cancer journey was that catapult to help me to shift as well.
Tony, I commend you for taking this charge and now doing that to help catapult things, especially for women. Can you take
Mhm.
us a little bit back about when you're going through something like this and your career is going well and all of these things are working great for you with all these big companies that you're doing such phenomenal things with? How did that affect you, knowing that you're making all these plans and all these things you got going
Mhm.
on, and now something just roadblocked you and stopped you in the midst of all that you're doing? Can you talk to us about the mental aspect of that, dealing with that and going through some of those things and preparing to like understanding someone just told you that you have breast cancer to deal with
Yeah.
all those things?
And that's a really great question. I literally went through every range of emotion and
Mhm.
I allowed myself to sit there, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we try to push past the fear, push past the disappointment, but allow yourself to sit there and understand that all of those emotions are normal. And so you're right. It's not, cancer was not just a physical journey, it's also a mental journey as well. It's a
Right.
spiritual journey and a financial journey. So all of those components are impacted when you hear the words, you have cancer. And so, again, on paper, I was thriving, but internally, there was something lacking, there was something missing. And I didn't understand that until I went through my cancer journey. But to answer your question, how did I prepare? I'm a believer. So, a lot of my preparation, a lot of my mental fortitude came through meditation and prayer, and also just making sure that I was surrounded with the right family and the right friends.
Once you got that information and you was going through hearing that information,
Mhm.
did the doctors ever mention to you what were some contributing factors or some things? Because you said it didn't even like run in your family or anything like
No, I'm the first one. Hopefully the last one as
that.
well. But
Absolutely.
yeah, there are so many factors, both external, like the environmental toxicities. There are things in the food. There are hormones, GMOs. There are so many things, so they
Wow.
could not pinpoint exactly what happened. Which I mean, I'm sure you can imagine. That's also fearful. It's like, how do I stop a recurrence? And so they couldn't understand, like in terms of why that happened, in terms of like where exactly did it come from.
So let's talk about another aspect of this. So you're hearing this message. Now you have to tell your family. How is that information
Yeah.
shared with your family? How do they deal with that?
Yeah, it was really tough. Again, so I have two little kids, well, an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. They're not little anymore, but just having them go through that was very difficult. And I also have my husband who I met in college. So we've been, together since we were 18 years old. So we're best friends. But having to tell him that was very, very difficult because you hear so many horror stories. And he was like, Tandi, I was built for this. And
Mm.
so it was just amazing how we were able to go through that we didn't tell the children immediately because I wanted to understand and do my research, to understand exactly what the treatment plan would be, kind of understand a little bit more before we brought them into it. But eventually we did tell them, we sat them down, we told them about what cancer is and that mommy will survive. So we were very straightforward and very hopeful as well through the journey.
Absolutely. Wow. Now, this is a life-altering event. How
Hmm.
does how did your perspective on life change after going through this?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, Michael, is by Mark Twain. And
Hmm.
his quote says that the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why.
Hmm.
And I believe from a perspective point of view, my life view changed because I realized that life can be snatched away from me just like that. And so now I was always intentional, but even more intentional now. And every day that I wake up, I realize that there is purpose and potential in every day, and it's up to me to go after it.
What are some practices and strategies that you implemented in your life to change your mindset to get to this self discovery and this transformation that you had?
Yeah, I would say there are quite a few. The first one would be I learned how to turn my trauma into creativity.
Hmm.
And so those 15 years of experience in advertising really helped me to understand, like, Tandi, how can I take what I've gone through and how do I create books? How do I create poems? How do I turn this into a talk, a TED talk? Or how do I turn this into a documentary? And so I was able to channel a lot of my trauma into creativity. That's the first thing. The next one is prayer and meditation. You cannot get through this alone. I know I could not. And so
Hmm.
it was very important for me to really focus in on meditating, whether it was reading scriptures, whether it was going to Bible study and praying. Exercise was also a big factor for me, just being outside in nature, whether it was going on a nature walk or whether it was going on a hike on the days that I had energy, was super, super important. And then something else, Michael, was therapy. Therapy was, oh my gosh, amazing. I literally had to go through therapy my entire journey because, again, like I mentioned before, cancer is not just a physical journey, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's financial. And so I realized that I needed some help when it came to reframing my thoughts and emotional brain training as well. So I would say those are some of the factors that really helped me to thrive through that experience.
Wow. So introspectively, going through all
Mhm.
those things, what have you learned or discovered about yourself in regards to like some things around like your superpowers, some of your God-given talents and skills? What did you discover
Yeah.
about yourself?
I realize that I am very resilient,
Mhm.
very resilient. And so it's interesting, when you go through a traumatic experience, it can either make you bitter or better. And it's interesting how one letter can change the trajectory of your life. And I was determined that I would allow this experience to make me better.
Wow. So you also mentioned that you started doing some creative things and stuff like that, and you decided to write a book around affirmation. Can you tell us about your book?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So with my clients, I'm always coaching them on how to shift from existing to living. And they would ask me, well, Tandi, how do I do it? Like, what is this shift? Like, what do I do when I'm not in the sessions? And so I wrote this affirmation book for myself first, as well as my client. And it really focuses on a lot of components that we need to help to reignite our passion and purpose, such as confidence, such as saying goodbye to fear, such as people are waiting. And if you don't mind, I would love to read one of the affirmations on confidence. It says, if anybody can do it, I can. I have the confidence, the wisdom, the resources, and boundless energy to fulfill my purpose. There's no need for permission or perfection, just my belief and action.
Wow, wow, wow. So true. If you can expand a little bit, since you mentioned that you have some clients, can you talk about your company and the services that you guys provide? And if you could even share some success stories from some of the clients that you work with too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the Tandi Monet brand was actually birthed through my journey. So I was literally, Michael, in chemo sometimes, like doing my brand strategy, or I was like getting after radiation, like, okay, let's look at these logos. Because again, that helped me to keep going because I realized that there was something bigger that I had to do as a result of this traumatic experience. And so the Tandi Monet brand, the overall goal is to really help women all around the world shift from existing to living. And we do that by providing, transformational experiences. We have coaching services, courses, and health and wellness programs for women.
Wow. Thinking of your previous experience
Mhm.
and going through what you've been through, do you think that your previous career, professional career, helped prep you for this, and now going through cancer prepare you to become a business owner?
Absolutely. I've always wanted to go the entrepreneurial route. So
Mhm.
this really helped to speed up that process, essentially. And so I always had that entrepreneurial mindset. And I always knew that, based on my goals, that I would eventually leave corporate and start my own. So this, like, again, expedited the process. And to your point, yes, those 15 years of experience with being a creative and doing strategy and account planning, that helped to set the tone for the Tandi Monet brand.
Absolutely. Now, I know when you're running a business and you're galvanizing and creating a community of people that are like-minded or people that you're influencing.
Mhm.
Did you run across anyone that said, "Hey, Tandi, I've been through some of the same situations that you've been through, and your story has inspired me. And can you help me get through this struggle or this rut that I'm facing right now?"
Absolutely. It happens probably 3 times a week. Because I'm a part of so many organizations, and I really believe in giving back, and so whether it's through an organization or whether it's a question on social media, I often get that question, and so again, my goal is to really help allow my story to heal myself as well as heal others. And so when I talk them through the process, again, there's no one size fits all. You can't rush the journey. What worked for me may not work for anyone else. And so I always ask them, where are you now and where do you want to go? And kind of help them get a roadmap to get to that transformation phase of their life.
So for the listener that's listening, right, and they have some doubts, they have some struggles, and they're kind of like facing this adversity that's within their lives, what would you say to them in regards to just being stuck in that rut right now?
Hmm. And that's a great question. I would say give yourself space and grace. And I say that because when it comes to space, it's important for you to understand where you are because adversity is very difficult. You cannot rush the journey. You have those stages of grief and trauma. And so allow yourself to understand where you are in life. And then also realize that it won't last forever. Everything happens for a reason and allow yourself to learn from it, allow yourself to heal from it, and also share your story. Sometimes we are afraid or ashamed to tell our story, but oftentimes when I know for myself, every time I share my story, Michael, it used to be so hard I couldn't get through it without crying, right? It was, I mean, very difficult.
I
But the
know.
more and more that you do it, it's like I am healing myself and I'm healing others who are listening or also watching.
Wow. Think about this, and then I would like for you to share with our audience.
Mhm.
When you're going through your situation and you said, "I'm gonna start this business,"
Yeah.
were there or was there anyone that like mentored you or coached you or prepped you while you were on this journey? And then I want you to also spin that same question in regards to what you're doing for people now, coaching them and
Mhm.
mentoring them. Did that prepare you to start leading these people that you're working with now?
Yeah, Brene Brown is one of my favorite authors, and she always says you need to have a personal board of directors, right?
Mm,
And so within that personal board of directors, I've had various mentors from the CEO of my company all the way down to people at church to business owners. So I tend to surround myself with people who are where I want to be, if that
mhm,
makes sense. And
mhm,
so because of that, even before my journey, I was preparing to become an entrepreneur. So I would ask those questions. I was in those meetings. I would make sure that I was preparing myself mentally and physically and financially
mhm,
to eventually exit. And so, yes, it's very important that you surround yourself with people who know where you want to go and will
mhm,
help you be accountable to get there. And to spin that question to answer your question is how do I help people? Again, I help them come up with an exit strategy. So oftentimes people say, I want to have my own business. And that's really great, but it's a grind. It's very
right,
difficult. And so I always tell them to use wisdom. So within your exit strategy, what is the what? What is the how? What is the when that you need to implement before you transition from the corporate life to your own business? And make sure that you have those smart goals. It has to be, you know, reliable, it has to be time bound, it has to be measurable. So when you're doing that strategy, intentionality is so key. And then as you are also working through corporate and wanting to leave, it's important that you learn how to build your business while you're working in corporate. So how can you use your sick days? How can you use your vacation days to take that time off and to build your business plan or to go to networking events so that when it's time, you will already have a client base and you'll also have a plan.
Wow, I love what you just said. That's the same thing that I did when I left
Hmm.
corporate. I was working in between while I was there, and that's
Yeah.
when I said it was time for me to leave. When it was time for me to start my own company, and I purchased a franchise, and
Hmm.
it was a great stepping stone for me in regards to just getting into the entrepreneur space. But I did exactly what you just said in regards to
Wow.
prepare myself to get to that level, so it wouldn't be a struggle because a lot of people will want to leave 9 to 5 and all these different things, but don't have a plan. And then if you don't have a plan, obviously you're going to plan to fail.
Exactly, absolutely. And if you can save as much as you can save and stack and sacrifice, that is so important because, when it comes to the growth of your business financially, you're not going to just, come out the gate just making millions of dollars. It takes time to ramp up. And so I would say if you can save and find various streams of revenue, so as you are building, whether it's stocks and options or whatever it may be, have various passive um, ways to make money as you're building.
Definitely. How do you handle setbacks? Because since we're talking about business here, kind of like
Hmm.
people think that when you get into entrepreneurships, that it's going to be easy and there's no bumps in the road and things like that. For yourself as a business owner, being someone that has been through some tough times in their life,
Hmm.
when hard times come to you as a business owner, how do you deal with that and process that?
Again, I sit with it. Life is all about learning from failures, learning from your mistakes. And so it's interesting that before the journey, I had like a type A personality. Everything had to be perfect. Everything was just like bam, bam, bam. But now I realize that I have been given this second chance for a reason. And so when failures happen, when mistakes happen, there's a term that I've learned. It's called the trichotomy of control. Have you heard of that before?
Tell me about it.
The trichotomy of control. So oftentimes we think about life as the controllables and the uncontrollables, but there is like a middle term. There are some things that we have partial control over. So when you think about uncertainties or when you think about those setbacks, it's important to sit and realize, like, what do I have control over? Can I control the diagnosis? No. Can I control my mindset? Yes. And what do I have partial control over? I can control my treatment plan, right? So I can work hand in hand with my team of doctors to really understand what is the best treatment for me moving forward. And so, for your listeners, it's very important for you to be able to differentiate between what you can control completely, what you have no control over, and what you have partial control over. And that helps me when I face adversity.
Wow. What are some mantras that you live by that get you through your day to day basis and your day to day grind when you're out here
Mhm.
in the business space or even with your family?
Yeah, various mantras. And so I am happy, healthy, and whole. I have what it takes to be successful. I have what it takes to attract high paying clients. So I'm always talking to myself. I am my best friend in the mirror. And so sometimes when I, have to get up, and sometimes you will have those tough days and you will allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to have space and grace, but wipe your tears and you get up and you speak to yourself, because oftentimes we look for that affirmation from friends and family members, but sometimes we have to affirm ourselves and look in the mirror and say, I have everything it takes to be successful. Today is a new day full of purpose and possibilities.
So before we get ready to wrap up and get out of here, right? For the listener that's listening and they're
Mhm.
teetering, right? Whether it's entrepreneurship or I want to stay in my 9 to 5, can you give some more, I guess you want to say, some strategies that they could actually start doing right now, even if it's next year, they want to leave 5 years from now. And I
Mhm.
specifically asked you that question because this question was posed to me and it was from another woman, but it was posed to me and she wants to leave her job and
Mhm.
she's thinking about some things to do and getting really burned out. What are some things that you've thought about or you could share with our audience in regards to like getting prepared, getting ready to leave that job to step into what God is calling for when it comes to their
Mhm.
purpose and their mission?
Mhm. I would say, kind of going back to Simon Sinek, define your why, Why do you want to leave? Is it because of the freedom? Is it because of the financial stability? Is it because you want to make an impact that you cannot make in the corporate space? So it's very important to define your why. And I'm saying that because when you have those adversities, when you have those setbacks, you can always go back and say, Michael, hey, this is why I decided to do this. Because you will have those times where you question, did I make the right decision? Because starting your own job or your own company, sometimes I miss that consistent paycheck that I received in corporate, And so there are pros and cons. And so you have to have that mental fortitude to say, I'm ready. And I know that it's going to be difficult, and I am ready to roll up my sleeves and do whatever it takes for me to be successful. And I would also say define your success, because success in someone's eyes may be having $1 million. Someone may say, I want to impact a certain amount of people in this demographic. And so define your success. Like, why do you want to go into business, and what does success look like for you? And then also, as I mentioned before, from a financial standpoint, make sure you're ready, because when you step out, when you step away from that bi-weekly paycheck, you have to be ready financially if there may be a cold season where your clients may not be responding, if your clients may not be ready to take on this contract. And so I would say prepare yourself financially as well.
Wow. How much would you say, or can you talk a little bit about your faith and your belief in regards to like getting you through like tough times and the struggles that you've been through?
hmm And I would say that has been a huge component, 100%, and how I was able to thrive through, because as I mentioned, there were some dark days, and people think that once your chemo is over, once the radiation is over, once the surgeries are over, it's done. No, there's a mental component that you are still going through, fear of a recurrence, fear of why did that happen to me? And so I have to sit with knowing that everything happens for a reason, and I have to pray, God, help me, give me the wisdom to continue to move forward even in the midst of adversity or uncertainty. So that's important. Again, just my faith in God, the scriptures, the affirmations, meditation, and just getting myself mentally ready for the day. It's something that I do every single day. I get up at 5:45 or 6 o'clock, and I sit in my meditation closet and I sit and say, Tandi, what do you want to accomplish today? And I ask God, what do you want me to say or do today that will help bring glory to your kingdom? So there are certain things that I say and do to really prepare me for the day that is to come.
Wow. So I'm a big mental health advocate, being
Yeah.
someone that struggled with mental health issues and things
hmm
like that. I could imagine that being in stressful situations or just going through what you had went through initially
hmm
could potentially have put a mental strain on you, just being in that uncertainty of space that you're in right now.
Yeah.
Can you share with our listeners mental aspects of you, of the mental grit, the mental grind, in regards to how to handle some of those things when faced with tough situations and things like that?
hmm Well, I first of all, I burned my Superwoman cape, and I said I cannot do this by myself, and so I gave myself permission to not have to be strong all the time. I said, you know what, this is not a contest on who can be the strongest. No, it's not that. And so I know that this is an area where I need help. And so literally, I had my meetings with my therapist probably once a month at least, so that I can understand, okay, this is what I'm going through. And someone who is neutral, because yes, family is great, friends are great, but everyone doesn't understand what you're going through in that moment. And so it's important for you to find someone, a trained professional, who is able and willing to help you through that journey. And so I learned so much about reframing my thoughts. I learned about emotional brain training. There are so many different components that I did as I was going through that journey.
Wow. What are some key takeaways and some advice that you could share with our listeners from your transformational story? Because obviously it's been a great transformation. You've
hmm
been on a path of some of the setbacks, but now you're shining, you're thriving, got your business going, and now you're helping people.
And it's interesting that you asked that question, Michael, because as I was going through my journey, I love spreadsheets. And so every time I learned something new, I would write that learning on the spreadsheet. And I literally learned over 85 lessons. I won't bore you with all 85, but I would say I would give you maybe the top four. And the first thing is life is all about perspective. right? Your situation changes when your mindset changes. And oftentimes we cannot change the situation, but we can control who we are and our mindset. I would say the second one is build a support system. It takes a village to get through trauma, whether it's cancer, whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's divorce. So build a support system because you cannot do it by yourself. So that's number two. Number three is, as I mentioned before, how can you channel your trauma into something creative or something positive? So with me, it was developing a documentary, writing poetry, writing the e-guides, helping others, and being a motivational speaker and sharing my story so that I can heal as I was sharing my story. And the next one is take time to celebrate and reflect on the moment. Oftentimes, we try to rush through the process and we forget to sit back and say, wow, I actually went through one of the most difficult times of my life. So let me celebrate. And so it's very important that you stop and you celebrate and you reflect on what you've learned, who you've become. And I refer to myself as Tandi 2.0 now. I'm like, I received an upgrade during this journey. And so the transformation between Tandi 1.0 and Tandi 2.0 is worth celebrating. And that's exactly what we did.
Wow, I love the growth.
Yeah.
If anybody wanted to work with you, book you on their podcast, call you for a speaking engagement to motivate them, how can they find you and get a
Sure.
hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me on my website. You can go to www.tandimonet.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram as well as TikTok. That's at Tandi Monet. So ThandiMonee.
Thank you so much. Tandi, before we get out of here, do you have any last words for our audience?
My last words are live today like it's your last and
Absolutely.
be intentional as well.
Absolutely. Well, Tandi, thank you so much for being a guest on Overcoming Adversity podcast. Guys, if you like this podcast, make sure you leave a message. Also, share with the family, share with a friend. Until next time, God bless.
Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.